is my midterm presentation on my project called Unbiased. This was my original problem statement. It is, how can I create a website that is accessible and functions as a place for unbiased information about politics and government, while also providing a safe space for political conversation and debate? Now, my specific goals for the idea of the project were to create a safe space for political conversations and controversial topics. It was to create a safe space where people can be motivated to speak and act on their thoughts and opinions, and to create a space where people can learn about voting and politics and thus be encouraged to vote. While the third point seems a little bit separate from the first 2 points, it is still an important factor for me because that's kind of a secondary motivator for what I want this site to be. Because I feel very passionate about getting people to vote, especially that it's an election year, a presidential election year. As for the design goals, I wanted to focus on giving it a political atmosphere and a calming atmosphere at the same time, which I realize is a little bit conflicting and not very common, but it is what I'm striving to do. The design on this project, I want to create a soothing visual environment that complements the idea of a safe space. So I don't want to be using bright colors or intense propaganda colors. I want to stick more to like more pastel or faded colors just so they're not so in your face and alert. I also wanted to create a responsive design just so that it's accessible from multiple platforms. So what have I done so far? My biggest focus so far has been the branding and the visual and aesthetic aspect of the site. With this whole pandemic, I am a little bit behind schedule. I'd hope to be coding more by now, but this is what I've been focusing on so far. The three main categories that I want to talk about is the color palette, the name and pages, and then the logo. So as for the color palette, these were the first one on the very left. That was the very first color palette that I came up with. It's very faded, but still has the red and blue that invokes the political idea. The two on the right were secondary color palettes that were based off of the first one, and I go more into how I ended up deciding which one I wanted to use, even though they look very similar. As for the name and pages, naming this website was the hardest part because I'm very bad at naming things. So I ended up coming up with a list of names. At first I thought I wanted to have something politically based, but at the same time, I realized I could do that with just the look of the website and still invoke that feeling without having to say it. So I came up with still some political based names, but mostly just general conversation. And I ended up polling some family and friends, and the popular name was Unbiased, and I liked that name, so that's what I ended up deciding on. As for the pages, obviously the first page is the debate discussion and the most important part of this project, in my opinion, as it is the place where all the discussion and debate is going to take place. I also wanted to include some information about voting and how to register for voting because, like I said, that's a secondary motivator for creating this website. And I also included an election calendar and a homepage, an election calendar to keep track of upcoming elections, no matter how big or small, and a homepage to centralize everything and communicate what the site is about. So these were some of my original page sketches. On the left, there's a little bit of a wireframes or structure sketch about how I wanted to maybe lay out the structure of the website. On the right, we have some sketches about how I might want the home page to work or some of the other pages. On the left of this slide is a possible layout for the election calendar, and on the right is a more in-depth layout of how I might organize the topics in the discussion. So the logo has been my favorite process so far. I started with 2-color logos because I know I wanted red and blue for the political inspiration. So these were some 2-color combination logos that inspired me. And as far as meaning, this is an Irish unity knot, is like coming together. And I also really enjoyed the shape of it, so I took a heavy inspiration from this knot, and I really enjoyed the meaning behind it, and I thought that it conveyed well into my project. So I started sketching based off of these ideas, and as you can see, I went back to that knot shape over and over again, except I made it more geometric and a little bit cleaner. And here I started adding color with the reds and the blues. I tried purple, I did not like it very much. And then I ended up moving it to a digital platform and started playing with the colors and see what might look best. I also started playing with fonts. I used Google Fonts and was able to kind of decide what I liked. And on this page, I ended up deciding on that bottom right one as the one that I liked the most. Its colors were the closest, and I based my next set of logos off of that color combo. This next page is kind of where I was finalizing the branding, and I ended up picking out a whole bunch of different fonts and deciding by putting them all next to each other, I was able to figure out which one I decided looked better. And then I started looking at the logos again and more color palettes, and seeing it all on this one big page allowed me to really decide what I thought looked best together. So what's next for my project? The biggest hurdle for the rest of the project will be coming up with the user system. And the thought process behind this is, how can I make it different from a platform like Facebook? My issue with Facebook is that people are very proud of their ideas, and that's a really great thing, but we can get caught in defining ourselves by who we associate ourselves with. So there were 3 options. I could do it completely anonymously, not record anything. So my issue with this is it would be kind of difficult for people to have conversations if you don't know who you're talking to. Um, then I thought about using actual users like John Smith on Facebook, and I figured that's too much like Facebook or Instagram. And so I'm currently toying with the idea of anonymous users. So every time you log in, you will get this persona or character, so to speak, and you can use this character as long as you're on the site and talking with users. But when you're done, the the character will get recycled, so to speak. So you're not building up this one character as a specific, oh, I'm pro-life, or oh, I'm pro-gun control kind of person. They can each have their own ideas without building themselves up. Besides that, I'm working on pseudocode and actual coding, and the remainder of this project will just be combining the code and branding and design choices that I have made to finish the project. And hopefully I will be able to host on the NKU servers, but still working on that. All right, thank you.